I was in elementary and middle school and pretty much all of high school, I was called a gifted kid. And I didn't even realize how much I identified with that and how much it was really breaking me until much later. Because when I was a kid in school, I really didn't need to study anything. I would study, but it's not like I would spend every waking hour doing it, because I would just read through my homework or whatever I'm studying. If there were any tests being done, I would look at it once, but I hated doing it. I hated school, and maybe part of the reason why I was usually, for the most part, mostly an A and B student when I was a kid is because I wanted to make sure that I did well on it, because I hated it so much I didn't want to repeat it if I failed. That's what life was like for me in school, is I would just show up and I would do the minimum amount of studying required, and then I would get an A or a B. But then it started to get to the point where my parents were just used to me getting A's and B's all the time. Then they would start to get very upset with me. They would get very upset with me if I ended up coming home with a bad grade. The couple of times that it did happen, and they would scold me, because then they would say, "What happened? I thought you were so smart." And so I just got so used to hearing kids and teachers telling me, oh you're such a good kid, you're so smart. But what I ended up realizing was, kind of like, because I love relating everything to guitars and guitar playing, it kind of reminds me of a noise gate on a guitar. So for those of you that are not guitar players, certain guitars, and depending on how your setup is, you can get a lot of background noise. So there's usually on a noise gate, you would use that to turn down the noise, but there would be something on there called a threshold. So a threshold is the amount, like the decibel, like the amount of noise that would be allowed through until the noise gate would cut it off, pretty much. So it's like, so it felt like pretty much my knowledge or my skill, my abilities were here, okay? It would be here, but if it was here, it felt like the material of everything I was studying was down here. And so throughout most of my life, everything was here. But then I remember my mom would say, "Hey Jaron, how come," during high school, she would say, "How come you're not putting yourself in the advanced classes?" And I would tell her, "I'm not interested in the advanced classes." But then she would say, "But you're so smart." But then I'm realizing, no, I'm not smart. I'm only smart for a certain degree, because there's certain amounts of information that are very, very easy for me to understand if it gets up to here. But all of a sudden, when the information all of a sudden starts to get up higher, up here, to the point where that I had to actually learn how to study, that's what ended up killing me. because by the time I got to college for the Art Institute of Houston, I was there only for 8 months before I quit. But that's because when I know everything that I know now, I was just using the ability of me and my mom can't afford it anymore as the excuse. And the real reason why is because at that time, when I was 19 years old, I wasn't mature enough to take the time to learn new studying habits, because this is when all of a sudden I was learning all about recording equipment. And then it got to a point for me where all of a sudden I couldn't just immediately figure out everything right away anymore. I couldn't do that anymore. And hang on, I need to get my glasses back, my regular glasses. This is one of the cool things about the Hyundai Kona, is the lane assist keeps you in the middle of the lane without both hands being on the steering wheel. How neat is that shit? So anyways, the problem came when I started failing a lot of these tests, like for a recording class, asking me about equipment and crossovers, like crossover and learning about frequencies and EQ and compression, and a lot of this stuff I didn't care. Or sorry, it's not that I didn't care, it's that I kept trying to use the same methods of studying, which was barely doing the minimum shit, looking at the paper, looking at my notes just once, and then expecting, and that would be enough to carry me through. But then what I'm realizing is that's not enough. It didn't carry me through. All of a sudden I was getting 60s, 70s, and I was lucky to even get an 80 on a test all of a sudden. And yet this was on subjects that I supposedly care about way more than the stupid shit with the regular education. This wasn't math, this wasn't science, this wasn't English or writing class, the stuff I didn't care about when I was in school, yet I was doing so much better on those than I was for studying music, the stuff that I actually cared about. And then all of a sudden there was this long giant paradox. And so I remember one day in my recording class, we had to do a project where we had to record a person. And yet, I didn't know anybody back then. I didn't know anyone. I didn't make any friends. Because all I would do is I would go home and just kind of do the same thing that I'm doing right now when I'm done working for Uber for the day. Is I would stay at home and watch movies or watch TV and play video games until I fell asleep. And I'm not really doing much video game playing anymore, but principle still applies. So I'm going to find a place to park because this story is too damn important. So the main issue with all of this is when you're a gifted kid, you get all these expectations placed on you, and if these expectations weren't outright being mentioned or being said out loud, you absolutely felt a shitload of pressure. And all of a sudden I felt a shitload of pressure from my mom because she kept saying, "You're supposed to be smart. You're really smart. I don't understand why you keep failing." But it's because I didn't even realize this stuff until I watched Dr. K, for the first time Dr. K from one of my favorite YouTube channels, which is Healthy Gamer, GG.
Right? See, if you expect nothing from someone and they don't perform, that's just a regular failure. But if you are a gifted kid and someone expects a lot from you and you underperform, even if you perform average, right? See, this is the challenge, is that performing average or being normal or even being above average is viewed as a failure.
I wasn't able to realize like what all this stuff meant until maybe last year or maybe 2 years ago. I wasn't able to, I realized that being a gifted kid can be a lot more damaging because it gives you the false sense of thinking you don't need to practice anything. It gives you the false sense of thinking you don't need to do anything. You don't need to practice. You don't need to study. You can just walk in there and do it. And now I'm at the point in my life at 29 years old where I'm realizing now that all of this stuff is really affecting my adult life, because I used to think that I could play guitar or bass really well before, or like when I first started playing guitar, I thought it was easy, but then my progress plateaued. Why? Because I have no discipline and I don't know how to study. I don't know how to practice. And these are all things that I'm working on now. I wasn't able to work on them back then when it mattered, when maybe my life would be on a completely different trajectory now. But what I'm realizing is even when I was doing all these supposed 9-to-5 jobs that teenagers in high school could do really well, and yet here I was at 24 years old, all my coworkers saying, aren't you old enough to be the manager? Why are you our coworker? And it's because being a gifted kid made me lazy, and it made me think I didn't need to work hard. And saying all these things out loud, I never would have had my ego would have, because it's funny, because I would have thought, oh, I don't have an ego. But now I'm realizing, yeah, you do. Yes, Jaron, you absolutely fucking do. Because I used to think everything would be so easy. Now I'm realizing it's not. And now that I'm glad I'm learning this shit now at 29 and not when I'm 39 or God forbid 49 or 59. But then at the same time, when I mention the ages, it's just, it doesn't even matter, because I used to feel so much pressure on myself. You have to do this before this certain age. You have to do this before this age. Now I'm realizing none of that matters, because all that matters is when you're realizing you're making a mistake, just don't beat yourself up about it. Realize, okay, the methods that took you to where you are, after a certain point, they're not working anymore. So this is the tough part. When you need to take when you have a tough pill to swallow, you have to swallow that tough pill, and you have to realize that you have to find something new, a different method. So whether that's, if you're starting a new job and you hate it because you thought everything else in your life before that was easy, now it's tough, now you want to moan and whine and complain because it's difficult. And because and this is me talking about myself here, doing my jobs previously at Chick-fil-A and Kroger, because now that you think it's so bad you can't handle it, you immediately want to quit when you don't immediately get it, or when you're not immediately good at it. This is what happens when you're a gifted kid and you become an adult. But I'm saying all of this stuff here because there's lots of people who are probably who might be a gifted kid watching this right now. And if you are, and any of this stuff I'm saying is resonating with you, I'm here to tell you, learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did, thinking everything is going to be easy. If you all of a sudden are doing work and you're studying on a test and you're really not getting it, don't wing yourself through it and let your grades go down because of it. Go and get help. It's okay. Don't be ashamed because so many people look at you as you're the smart kid, or people would look at you for the answers. Now, all of a sudden, if you're the one needing to ask for help, don't do what I did and just stuff it all down. Actually do something about it. See, the thing is, I'm doing something about all the things now at 29. I wish I did this when I wish I had the maturity, and I wish I had the ability to get out of my own way, get out of my ego, and realize all this stuff and start doing stuff about it at 21. But that's over. The past is the past. The only moment that we have right now is the present. So pretty much, and you know, this might sound tough because some people that were in my position before might really need to hear what I'm about to say, this next sentence. Sometimes you just need to pull your own head out of your ass. And I'm in the process now of pulling my head out of my ass. So instead of whining and complaining, I'm just doing what I gotta do now. So if this resonates with you, go ahead and leave a comment or hit the like button. And you just have to realize a lot of the stuff that you put pressure on yourself on, you think, oh, it's a big deal because everyone thinks of me as this one way, and then I start doing something else completely different, everyone's going to look at me as a fraud or as a phony. No. Screw that. You just have to realize that every single human being is on their own journey, is on their own path. And I know this stuff is all easier said than done, because believe me, I went through a bunch of whining and moaning and complaining yesterday, because your ego, your subconscious mind is so used to doing things a certain way that breaking out of old patterns, breaking out of old habits, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, it's tough. Believe me, I know it's tough because I'm still going through it. But really, I guess the point of this channel now, in addition to me showing my music and occasionally playing video games, is I'm documenting the journey of just doing what I can to be better. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of that stuff. So, anyways, this is me just wanting to talk about my experience being a gifted kid, and if there's anyone that can relate to this, if you were called a gifted kid, now you're an adult, what's your experience like? But I just wanted to get all these thoughts off my chest. So thank you so much for watching, and hit the like button if you like this video, hit the dislike button if you disliked it, and if you want to see more videos from me and make sure you see them, go ahead, subscribe, click on the bell icon, you know, all the stuff that every YouTuber says. And I'll see you next time. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.